My name is Dr. Kabir Adamu. I'm the Managing Director of Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited. And as the name suggests, my expertise is on intelligence and national security, both in terms of analysis as well as policy formulation and documentation.
All right.
There are about 4 categories of reasons. Number one is the political reason. As you know, the after effect of the 2023 general elections has left a significant number of people unhappy, and we have seen an early start to preparations for the 2027 elections. Now, what has happened is because the current administration has not run an inclusive government, apart from, I think, Wike, who is still in the PDP, there is no significant element of any of the other parties that has been included within the governance structure. So those persons who feel aggrieved and who feel insecurity can be a factor in determining the next elections, of course, unfortunately, are now kind of, either encouraging directly or indirectly acts of criminality. And added to the fact that there was a period of, I would say, power vacuum when the president traveled, and it doesn't seem like he handed over power to anyone, and either his vice president, who also appeared not to be active during that period. And then more importantly, the National Assembly too was on recess. So there was some form of power vacuum. And as we say in social sciences, power abhors vacuum. And so all of these players took advantage of that opportunity. And of course, the rest is history. We've seen all of that in reflecting and manifesting in insecurity. The second point is socioeconomic conditions. Since this administration came to power, the policies that it has been implemented, and a lot of those policies are necessary policies. I must say that, as an example, the removal of subsidy, the floating of the Naira, name them, all of these are necessary policies. But the absence of a palliative measure to cushion the effect of these policies has created a large pool of poor persons who are finding it difficult to feed. Also, the unemployment rate may have increased as a result of some of the socioeconomic policies. Companies, especially international ones, have moved away from Nigeria to other countries. So the unemployment pool has increased. There are several socioeconomic factors. The high inflation rate, the cost of living crisis, name them, have now made a lot of people susceptible to crime. And so it's easier now for the criminal elements to recruit from this very large pool that are aggrieved and that are extremely poor to an extent. Now, the next one is the environmental factors. Climate change and its consequence has also created a push for insecurity. If you look at the farmer harder crisis, one of the factors that led to it is in environmental factors. The effect of climate change on food security, the effect of climate change on mining and all of that, and the intersection between mining and insecurity. So again, environmental factors have also led to it. And then embedded in all of this is what I would call the security factor. In other words, the role public security has been playing, or the absence of public security. If you are in urban centers, you would see significant security deployment. But as you move outside the urban centers, you would see a very thin security deployment. So the criminal elements have taken advantage of this thin deployment, and they are busy carrying out different acts of criminality, and in the process killing people. Added to that is the element around the role of governance in all of that. Poor governance or absence of it, especially an inclusive governance that is conflict sensitive, that understands what the drivers of conflict are, such as land governance, such as political marginalization and resource competition, and it puts in place mechanisms to address this. Is almost absent at the moment at both the federal and at the state levels. So these are some of the reasons why in the last few weeks, months, we've seen a spike in security challenges. Of course, there are pre-existing factors that are not new, such as proliferation of small arms and light weapons, the drug addiction, our porous borders, the collapsed value system, the social cohesion, which is also extremely low within the country, and then, of course, the role of non-state armed groups, especially where you have ungoverned spaces such as forests and mountainous areas. So those pre-existing factors, when you add this to these other factors that I've mentioned, have created what I would describe as a perfect storm for insecurity in Nigeria, sadly. I know it appears, especially given the attention that the media is giving to those two states, it appears that those two states are the conflict hotspots in Nigeria at the moment. But data does not show that. The reality, and this is what I will urge our friends, those who are in the fourth estate of the realm, to be more conscious of the possibility, for instance, that yes, Benue and Plateau are being hit, but frankly, based on data, they are not the top most affected states. The top most affected state, based on our data, are Zamfara, Niger, and Borno State. And they are not, you don't hear them that much. Anyone who is interested in this should go to our website, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, and see the documented report that we have on fatalities and abductions. And you see that Benue and Plateau come somewhere number 5, number 6, in terms of occurrences. These other states that I've mentioned, Borno, Niger, and Zamfara, they come tops. So I'm not in any way belittling what is happening in Benue and Plateau, but I also think we need to be very fair and not be sucked into this binary, affair of, if a conflict does not fit into that binary vision of ethnicity and religion, then it does not carry. It's not featured in news reportage. So Zamfara, that is almost mono ethnic society, and of course one religion. The media is not too interested in it, but because Benue and Plateau fit this into this binary, two religion, two ethnicity, and all of that, they report more on it. So I think the reality is that this conflict is spread. It's not targeted at one location, and it's not as a result of perhaps what some are saying, an attempt to kill a particular ethnic group or not. No, these are common criminals who are driven by criminal motives. And if we do not change our mindset and call them what they are, criminals, and remove any ethnic or religious affiliation to them, so that we unite as a people and go after them, then sadly they would continue to propagate their evil activities.
Okay.
At the moment, I do believe that we're dealing with the same enemy. The enemy is driven by criminality and nothing else. The same enemy in Zamfara, Katsina, Kaduna, Niger, Plateau, Benue. The same enemy driven by criminality. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is an identity-based conflict. There are different groups who are fighting for their survival, actually, and trying to identity. Now, embedded in that is the criminality. Because we've not addressed it at the beginning, we've allowed criminality to creep in. And those criminals are taking advantage. So they go to the harder side, they rustle their cattle, they go to the farmer side, they attack, kill them, and like some would say, attempt at lamb grabbing. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. But the reality is that they are interested in a resource, and so they attack that community. So both sides are suffering. I don't know if you've seen the recent press statement by one of the Fulani associations, Mieti Allah, how they documented their leaders that are being killed. Even 2 days ago, a Fulani leader was killed in Kwara State when him and 7 other people were killed mercilessly. That was not so covered in the media that well. So clearly, the agenda is there. It's a criminal agenda. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. I do not think it has anything to do with land grabbing. It's just a group of people who are just interested in the nefarious activities that they're doing. Now, whether we call them or we call them, I don't want I'm looking for the right narrative to describe the harder militia that we have in North Central, but they are common criminals. They are driven by a criminal motive. They are not carrying out an ethnic agenda because they also kill their own brethren, the Fulanis. If you check your records in Sahara Reporters, you see that a Fulani leader has been killed in Barikilad in Plateau State within this year alone. Another one has been killed in Kwara State, apart from this one I mentioned that was killed 2 days ago. And then another one was killed in Katsina. So it's well documented that they kill anyone irrespective of the person's ethnicity, including Fulanis and several other tribes in Nigeria. So let's call them what they are. They're criminals, and let's go after them. And you'll be surprised that within that criminal network, it's not just Fulanis. There are others too, of different ethnic groups that have come together. Even if, for instance, a Fulani roses cattle, he's not going to sell that cattle to his own fellow Fulani. He's going to move that cattle to other parts of the country. And it is the criminal network that has different ethnic groups that will buy that cattle. So let's come out of that, this ethnic coloration of crime, and just focus on the crime itself and deal with it. Personally think it's mining. Nigeria is a rich country. The kind of mining resources that we have is mind-boggling. And anywhere you see conflict, you find out that there is illegal mining going on. In Zamfara, it's what is happening. They are mining gold and other minerals that we don't even know about. And believe me, there are international players. What these conflict actors that we have been discussing are just the surface ones. They are doing it for someone else. And once they create that conflict environment, those other persons go in to mine what they want and move. The same thing I suspect is happening in parts of Plateau State, because of course Plateau State is also rich in mining minerals. So it's about land, but unlike what some people are saying, it's for farming purposes, I don't think it's for farming purposes. I think it's more about the resources that are embedded in that land. And there are people who are driving it, who are sponsoring it, and who are benefiting from that mining. Oh, I don't think government is knowingly complicit. Yes, government inactivity has allowed it to fester. Government's inability to take the necessary action to arrest the perpetrators has allowed it to fester, but that does not translate necessarily to government being tacitly involved. It is more one of negligence and one of lack of accountability by government. Yes, it's possible there are international players, but I believe the significant number of the players are Nigerians, and that simple law enforcement and strengthening of security can address the challenge. First off, I think this current administration has prioritized security, and there are a lot of facts to support this statement I just made. Fact number one is in the Renewed Hope agenda, security featured prominently there. There are about 8 items in the Renewed Hope agenda that that's policy items that this government said is going to do. The challenge is that it's been slow in implementing those 8 items. So I'm hoping that as we approach 2 years, the government would, be more intentional in implementing those items. As an example, the military doctrine that it said it's going to change and improve. It's yet to do that. The welfare and number, as well as the equipment repository of the security forces that it promised it was going to increase, we haven't seen enough of that. Issues around accountability, issues around including getting the buy-in of the people, we haven't seen enough of that. Still, security forces are complaining that people are not supporting what they're doing, and name them about, like I said, 8 things. We're yet to see the implementation of those 8 things. And so we're hoping that, going forward, this is what we'll see. With regards to the second part of your question, what should we do? I've listed a couple of things that I believe if the government does it immediately, it would help turn the tide around and we would see an improvement in security. Number one, a professional, well-resourced police and security architecture that is locally rooted but nationally accountable. Security has to be local. It has to be granular. It has to be at that village level. We cannot continue having a situation where in the urban centers, especially where there is a high-level event, if you come out of the building, if you see the number of security personnel that you see deployed, but as you go to our villages, you find it difficult to get two, three security personnel. And even when you see, they don't have vehicles, they don't have guns, and all of that. So we need to change that, make our security local, and then improve national accountability, make sure all the security elements are accountable. These instances of failure that we're seeing in places like Plateau and Benue, someone should have been queried. The right question should have been asked of those that are responsible for protecting public security in those locations. We didn't see that. Number two, and possibly the most important one, I want to see a conflict-sensitive governance that addresses local issues, such as land disputes in a fair, equitable manner, and that also addresses political marginalization, whether real or perceived. You can't have a situation in Benue State where only one tribe has been governing the state. The thieves, the Idomas too want to govern, the other tribes too want to govern. In Kogi State, if not for now that you have a non-Igala person governing, it has always been the case where Igala. So we must see a conflict-sensitive governance that understands equity, understands diversity, and understands inclusion, and addresses, like I said, land disputes, political marginalization, and resource competition. At the end of the day, a lot of this conflict are about resource competition. So the governance style has to be one that addresses it in a fair manner. You cannot create a state-level security structure like Amotekum, and then you only have Yorubas as personnel in that. You must have other tribes that exist in that part of the country. Once there is a sizable number, try and include them, because sometimes the enemy is from them, and so they will be able to help you to address it. You can't have only Hausa members of the community network group in Zamfara State when there are Fulanis in abundance there. So this governance must be one that is conflict sensitive. Number three, a justice system that is fair, fast, and credible, so that people don't feel the need to take the law into their hands. A lot of the reasons for the conflict we have today is because the justice system has failed some people, and so they just go and pick up arms and start fighting the state. Number four is civic education and dialogue platforms that help bridge divides and not widen them. At the end of the day, if we're able to do these four things and then create a national strategy for peace, growth, and development, then we'll be able to come out of this. But if we continue to see only the use of military force without these types of things that I've mentioned, then unfortunately, we're not going to get out of this. I think we need to decentralize policing. What form that would take is not yet clear. We should avoid the mistake of creating a structure like what we have at the federal level now. So, for instance, allow the states to create their own state policies in the form of what we have as MPF. I think it will be disastrous. The governors are mini gods in their state. Imagine a situation where some governors that we know at the moment have state police. Imagine Rivers State, if he had access to police, what would have happened now? And all of that. So I think we're waiting for what the National Assembly would do in terms of constitutional amendment to allow for some form of decentralization or a decoupling of the current policing system. But let's not focus on the Nigerian police force. Let's focus on policing. There are two different things. A police structure and policing are two different things. We can achieve decentralized policing without necessarily decoupling, as it were, the policing. Whatever we do, let's be mindful that the consequence of the action may affect our democratic experience and our democratic journey. Before we do that, we already have community policing policy in place. So why don't we start with the implementation of the community policing policy. Already the community policing allows for the creation of community policing committees in each of the wards that we have in the country at the moment. So let's start with that. The IG doesn't need anybody's powers to do that. There's already a policy in place. And most of these committees have been established. So hopefully, if the IG is interested, it's just for him to speak to his different police commands and make sure they reinvigorate these committees so that these committees start work and they're able to support the police, both in terms of intelligence gathering and in terms of supporting the work of the police in different forms. The other component is the recruitment of police constabularies. That has been done in most of the locations. So we're hoping to that will be made effective. This doesn't need any constitutional amendment. It's something that we can start while we await for the decision on the state police, whether we're going ahead with it or not. Let's use what we have at the moment, which is community policing.